is the Best Experience Show.
All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever state, whatever city, whatever country that you are listening to me from. My name is Shofu Babalolati SB for short. And you know what time is it right now? At this moment, at this time, at this period, whatever you're going to be doing or whatever you're going to be hearing in the next 1 hour, 30 minutes. I mean, you're surprised. I'm sure you're surprised, like, okay, 30 minutes. How did SB increase this from 1 hour to 30 minutes? Well, you requested for it, and I am giving it to you for free. So, we're going to be talking about pest and pest control, pest management, professional pest control management, professional pest control marketing strategies, and every single thing that has to do with pest control for homeowners, for facility managers, for pest control operators out there. This is the platform that you can learn, relearn, and unlearn from with a couple of experts like somebody that I have right now on the show. Like I said, my name is Shobalati of Lot, and on today's episode of Pest Experience Show, I have with me the marketing manager for the True Eat Solutions, all the way from California. You know what it is. And the Pest Experience Show, we go across different states, across different city, across different country to bring you quality information. I'm not going to talk about him. I would want him, to introduce himself. All right, over to you, Mr. Kaz. So
Yeah,
introduce yourself to the house.
Shofu, how you doing, man? It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm a new fan actually to Insight Radio, but I'm looking forward to consuming the content. No, but it's an honor, man. It is an honor that there's so many people out there that you can have on as value added for your fans and the people who tune into Insight and to the Pest Experience. But yeah, my name's Chaz. I'm from Southern California. I part operate, so I'm a part owner of a business out here called True Heat Solutions. We are a subcontractor working on like the specialty services for bed bugs, termites, rodents, some birds. But we basically fill the niche for pest control companies out here. So when there's a particularly challenging insect or rodent type pest that they need the big guns, if you will, we kind of fill that niche for them and go out and execute on their behalf. So we've we've grown quite a bit in the last 5 years. But it's been a wild adventure. But yeah, today I think we're going to talk about some bed bugs, and that's something that we specialize in as well.
Amazing. That's a whole lot that you're doing out there in California. Offering the special service, because anything has to do with e-treatment is a special service. It has to take a lot of equipment, a lot of resources to set up, and there's not so much that a professional pest control company can do with that. And that's the only way to beat resistance in terms of dealing with pest control. I mean, bed bugs or any other residential public health insect, you might say. So now, quick one. What exactly? There's a part of your service that really interests me and that really got my attention, which is a little bit out of what we're going to be talking about now, is the aspect of insulation. What exactly is that insulation about?
Yeah.
Before we start the major topic about exactly.
No worries. Yeah. So we have a lot of partners out here in SoCal that they do inspections for both termites and rodents. And there's a company called TAP that stands for Thermal Acoustic Pest Control. And while most cellulose insulations have borates that are included as part of their fire retardant capabilities, borates have been used, as a pesticide for forever. So TAP, got wise and went, look, I think that we can get this registered with the EPA and start to market this to the pest control market, and start to do some pest prevention for self-grooming insects. So we go out and we'll train various owner-operators, companies, businesses, brands to, while they're inspecting attics, to look to see if there's major like rodent fecal issues where it kind of becomes a health hazard. We'll go up there. We'll tear out all of the previous insulation. We'll sanitize, make it nice and brand new, and then we'll install that TAP product that I was talking about up to the standard of whatever region we're in as far as like resistance and insulation levels, I guess. But massive innovation.
Fantastic. Like that's a specialized. I'm telling you, that's a specialized service.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So quick one. We are going to be talking about latest advancements in bedbug control. Bedbug is a special treatment that requires experts to deal with, and even professional hands. If you're not really professional in terms of, and what I mean by professional, like not really experienced in terms of dealing with bed bugs, it might be a little bit very hard to deal with it because each of these treatment methods, there are different processes that are involved in that in dealing with it. But now, what exactly is this bed bugs entirely? Just introduce us to, because we have homeowners here who are new to these things, but they want to know. I'm not even sure. Some people are not even sure if they have bed bugs or if it's just cockroaches. Let's what's exactly, how does it look like?
Yeah,
Let's go
so I
from
mean,
there.
they're small. My favorite nickname for bedbugs is mahogany flats. That's a name from back in the day, but they are small, flat bedbugs, and the majority of people think that you can't see them. It's that's the general consensus is that you have
True.
an insect that's feeding on you while you're sleeping, and it's not exclusive. It's not a nocturnal insect. But they need a little bit of extra time to feed on you, and so because of that, you have to be static and still. And so where is that? That's your bed, that's your couch, your
Exactly.
chairs where you're spending extra time. And yeah, they sustain themselves and complete their life cycles based on their ability to feed and draw blood from a human host. I don't think it's exclusive to humans, but I do believe that the majority of them are on human blood. But yeah, I mean, all of the things from your nightmares that you think of, that's kind of what bed bugs are. They hit you when you're most vulnerable. They're the monsters under your bed at night that go bump. But we deal
Exactly.
with people at their lowest lows because I mean, you've never met somebody who's down on their luck until they haven't been able to sleep. And there's a kind of a vicious cycle, if you will, of they discover they have bed bugs, and so they will try and maybe launder their sheets, wash their bedding. That doesn't work, so they move to the couch. Then they've moved those bugs with them. Bed bugs are they're great hitchhikers, and so they'll just follow you. They'll attach to
Mhm.
a pillow or your clothing, and then you've just relocated them to those areas, and that's kind of how they spread socially as well with us. You've got public transportation, you've got
Mhm.
public buildings, city buildings, medical facilities, libraries, movie theaters, all of those areas where somebody could potentially deposit a bed bug, and then again, you're going to be stationary for at least a certain amount of time, and then you could potentially take them with you. A big one, obviously, is going to be travel. So focusing on really paying attention
Exactly.
to where you're sleeping when you go traveling. You got to imagine the amount of people that are staying in those rooms before you. And so yeah, I would say bed bugs
Wow.
they're not a new insect. It's something that we're starting to see a lot more of. I think I've read in previous I don't know, journals and presentations I've sat through where they said the absence of DDT really kind of sparked bed bugs again. Um,
Exactly. It really increased the level of infestation at the moment. Then DDT was the mighty solution for bedbug control. But at this moment now, it's like even pyrethroids at the moment right now, they've gained resistance to pyrethroids a lot. So which actually leads us to our major topic for tonight, which is the latest advancements in bedbug control. Now, if pyrethroids is the most common insecticides that are available in the market today, then what are the other treatment methods that professional pest control operator can use, or even homeowners can use to deal with these things, to deal with this insect?
Yeah, I have to be careful what I say when it comes to homeowners because I think a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there, and I respect it. I think there are people out there that are qualified to use these products who aren't licensed, right? I think that they will do their diligence, but for the most part, the safe handling, the safe storage of these
Yes.
products, it does require some additional training and stewardship. So I would invite you to always consult a professional, and at the very least, always read the label that's on top of the products that you're using. Um, but there's a whole slew of different ways. Our industry has gotten pretty creative with technology over I mean, I've only been in the industry for 10 years, but gosh, over the last 100 years,
Wow.
they've really had some great advancements. But at our company, what we utilize a lot is obviously chemistries. So we use some neonics, we use some pyrethroids, we use dehydrating dusts. I would recommend your
Okay.
applications, kind of focus on areas where, I mean, if you can imagine you're a bed bug for a second, where you'd want to hide, those would be the areas, the days of just walking in and spraying an entire room down, and leaving it dripping. Those days are gone. Pesticide technologies, manufacturers have gotten so good at making products that
Exactly.
only target and are only meant to target, based on IPM and uh, where these insects are going to be found. That it's just not as necessary. Residuals are pretty good when you need a residual. But I would say pesticides are something that we still lean on because
Mhm.
unless you're fumigating, nothing is 100%. We use steam. We use the Pulte C-Mex
Cool.
Eradicator. That particular steamer does really well. I like to
Okay.
combine or use that as a combined follow-up method so
Yes.
that the customers or tenants, homeowners, whoever it is, they don't have to go through the heat treatment or the fumigation process all over again. So you know if for some reason there's like a
Mhm.
reintroduction or a bed bug was in a wall or something that was missed, or just bad luck, honestly, there's still insects after the treatment. I like using the steamer because it's direct contact, there's no residual, and it's just hot water. It also takes care of eggs, which most insecticides are not going to penetrate an egg capsule, so that steam is a really really good tool. The the latest thing that we actually started getting into is a product called Apprehend, which is a biopesticide. It's a fungus.
Very
Um,
best idea.
yeah, it's the active ingredient is Bavaria bassiana, and I think Bavaria is used in some agriculture even. So I mean, I know that we don't use the S word in pest control, so safe is depends on your perspective and your ability, right? But I would say
Exactly.
that would be a pesticide or an insecticide that I would lean towards if you have a customer who's looking for a green option. That Bavaria is very
Mm.
good at what it does. We're still new to it, so I can't give it an absolute rating. But so far, we haven't had any issues with it on follow ups, and have had really good results with it. But it basically just sits dormant as little fungal spores, and the insect's cuticle or the moisture that's on the insect's exoskeleton activates that fungus, and then the fungus goes to work and does its job within 3 to 5 days. I've seen
Wow.
data from Apprehend that shows that it'll get passed, very similar to, I would say, most insecticides, but I really like the residual on that product versus some of the other products that we use. And like you said, resistance to pyrethroids is, I mean, it's pretty gnarly, and our neonics take a little bit longer to kill. So, that biopesticide is something that we're trialing at the moment. Obviously,
Wow.
our company's name is True Heat Solutions, so we rely on heat treatments quite a bit. It's something that we shine on, like specifically shine well on, because it's how our company started. We started as a heat treatment company, and then we started to bring on the various services that I described in the beginning. But the heat in multi-housing, where you can't, maybe you've got a fourplex, an eightplex, you've got multi units, and the tenants that don't have bed bugs, for example, maybe they don't want to tent, and so it becomes an issue when you're trying to resolve major infestations with just liquid, especially when you come into like
Mm.
high areas of clutter, or maybe the homeowner is disabled or they're not able to prep, and so the heat treatments really 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 shine.
Amazing. So you just said something out. That sometimes some clients are not, they don't have the strength to prepare themselves for a proper pest control treatment. What exactly is involved in the preparatory method? That's number one. And number two is that the advantage of using each treatment and the preparatory method. How does that relate together?
Yeah, well, I'll say, like, again, I've only been around for 10 years, so I'm not, you keep saying like the word expert, and like I think expert means that you're done learning, and I just, there's never enough to learn, especially when it comes to bed bugs. It's just like an ever evolving place, I mean, or
True.
space, and there's just all these new technologies that come out. And so before, I really believed that, to scale a pest control company, you needed to make sure that your customer was capable of prepping and, taking all of their clothes out of drawers, taking all of their clothes out of closets, clearing clutter and really like just making it like an empty shell so that we can get to baseboards, so we can get to beds. Um, and that was really just due to like a lack of training and a lack of scalability. But the more that I the more that I work in the space of bed bugs and the more that I see these difficult issues, the less and less that I want people to really touch anything. And that's because, more often than not, when your customers are preparing, they just move the bed bugs for you, or
To
move the
just
bed bugs
scatter the whole
around.
place. Do you know I've experienced these things, and at some point, initially when I started my bedbug treatment, I usually send the documents to my clients. It's called a preparatory checklist to the clients. So they read through it. There are parts they will call me and say, okay, should I bag my clothes? Should I bag my At some point I discovered that almost like three or four of my clients are scattered where the bed bugs are actually hiding. And when they lift up the bed bugs will tend to scatter. And when they scatter, they look for a different place to hide and they start breeding from there. So which means that it's going to cost another treatment method again, and a follow-up is required. Sometimes you might need to go extend the follow-up period. So I've even at this point now I've even stopped sharing the checklist, but they still need to prepare. They still need to prepare. What do we now do in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I mean for heat, we're really focused on things that would be susceptible to damage. So vinyls, laminates, waxes,
Mm,
things that could combust, aerosol cans, like a
okay.
hairspray or a deodorant. They've got like Axe body spray. Those are all things that we're looking to have removed. But for the most part, when I get customers, and it's rare, honestly, because we're a subcontractor. Usually, the pest control company has had that conversation with the tenant on our behalf, and so
Yeah.
sometimes things even get confused, and that's why I say the longer that I'm in this and the more that I'm around it, the more that I realize that just like you've described, interpretation is, I mean, it can be anything depending on how they interpret your instructions. When you show up, it could be completely different than what you were anticipating. And so a lot of the times when we go to heat and we tell people like, hey, please remove things that could potentially be damaged by heat. Well, I mean, these customers, they don't know what could be damaged by heat. How hot is it going to get, right? And so those are things as a business that we really work on to
Exactly.
try and make sure with videos, with prep sheets, with even like if they call me, I can kind of walk them through it. I really just want them to not touch anything and then let our technicians kind of diagnose the problem, reverse engineer, hey, or reverse diagnose, I should say. Okay, where do you spend most of your time? This bed, do you watch TV? Do you do
Yeah.
any type of business on the kitchen table? That's a real common place where they'll sit in that chair there. And then we'll focus on those areas. And so it's very similar if we have a treatment fail, for heat treatments, as good as they are, sometimes, you know, a guy's having an off day or, the problem is just really extensive. Maybe we get a lot of units where we show up and like 12 people will walk out of a one bedroom apartment, and I don't know what the fire
Wow.
codes are, on those buildings, but that's a lot of folks to have, in one building. And so trying to control what gets taken is really more what I'm concerned with
How?
than what they do inside. I don't want anything taken out. I don't really want you moving anything, and that's something, that's a hill that I would have died on, probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, of like, yeah, if you're doing liquid treatment specifically, you really got to prep, but
Exactly.
I think, your customer is paying you for a premium service when it comes to bed bugs. And again, they're at the lowest point
Well,
in their life. They really just they need some help. And, as a pest management professional, when you're trying to describe, what you do, to like when people ask me what I do, obviously I work in pest control, but there's a public health aspect to it as well, where we're actually out like doing a
exactly.
public health service and giving people their homes back, and bed bugs specifically. I saw a statistic the other day that showed 1 in 5 people have either had in the United States have either had bed bugs or know somebody that has had them. And so if you can imagine the amount of traveling that
Wow.
happens, 1 in 5 people that's pretty incredible, and
So a
so
whole lot.
yeah. So the preparation, I think, is evolving. I think you'll get a lot of different answers from people that you ask, and there's probably a lot of right answers. But I would say the majority of your homeowners, tenants, uh, they're better off just not really touching much of anything unless there's some sort of hazard for damage, or if the label, like if you're doing a Vicane structural fumigation for bed bugs, calls for it, then you gotta obviously abide by the label. But for the most part, you know, on liquid treatment specifically, you know, I've got the knee pads on, you know, I've got a back brace, you know, I'm not as young as I used to be. And those are like really labor intensive jobs, and it really requires you, you know, busting out the elbow grease and getting down on your hands and knees and inspecting to try and figure out, you know, how you end this
Exactly.
problem kind of in one, maybe two shots.
Wow. So, you know, there's a question that came to my mind, or that I usually get whenever I deal with bed bugs, is that, you know, every of the occupants of the house, they need to stay out of the house for maybe some certain period of time, maybe about 2, 3 hours, depending on the level of the pesticide or the type of treatment method you're going to be applying. Sometimes some of them need to go out for like 24 hours. But now, there was a time I started imagining that these people can actually take up a shirt that has a possibility of bedbug eggs staying on it, or the nip stage staying on it, or even the adult stage staying on that shirt, or even that bag. Some of them would go as long as they can say, okay, I want to do it when I want to travel. So they then carry their luggages, take it out to wherever they are going to, but there is a possibility that they can actually bring back this bedbug into the house. How then? And again, it now results into another infestation level. Then they eventually would now say that the treatment method initially that was done is not effective. So how then can we now solve this problem? Is it that they just, you know, when they go out, they come back in, they quickly get to the shower, they take off the shirts that they carried along with them to wherever they went to, they take it up, they tie it somewhere and they wash and they sun dry or something like that. So how would you, you know, how would you recommend that kind of things with a client?
Yeah, well,
Because proper communication is key.
I would say the communication on the front end is where it needs to take place. So when you're sitting down and you know, preparing that customer for whatever treatment it is, you know, you need to really convey the fact that one insect will restart this whole problem, right? Because one insect alive after you've left means that your treatment failed to them, right? And so I would say, I would tell customers, you know, take the clothes that are on your back, you know, bring a spare change of clothes if you'd like, you know, run those through the dryer on high heat, longest cycle. Myself and all of my guys, when we're out doing treatments, because you can imagine we're doing like 8 of these jobs a day, you know, individually, not together, but,
Wow.
you know, we across California, Southern and Northern, we're probably doing about 8 jobs a day. And so, you know, our
Wow.
exposure is so high. You know, we're in front of bed bugs every day, and so in order to prevent us from having bed bugs, and you know, knock on wood, we haven't had anyone take them home yet. But maybe we have taken them home, but our quarantine procedures are so strict, and it's what we convey to our customers to convey to their customers, is that as soon as you come back, everything that you have on goes either directly inside a plastic bag and left outside until you're ready, or it goes directly into the dryer.
Okay.
My wife,
Okay.
if she sees a spider in the house, she's losing her mind. Okay, and I'll say, you know, to her credit, Jade, I love you if you're watching this. But you know, if she were to see a bed bug in our house, she would kick me out of the pest control industry. She'd be like, okay, it's time to go get a nice office job somewhere. You know, like you've had your fun. We're not playing these games anymore, right? So.
Why not this?
Yeah, man. So, you know, again, knock on
Wow.
wood, I've never brought them home. And again, if I have, then I've correctly prevented them from entering the structure. But my shoes stay outside. I've seen like a really cool trick on YouTube where you can tie your shoelaces together, hold the dryer door open, put your shoes inside, and then close the dryer on your shoelaces. And these shoelaces will stay on the outside and hold your shoes suspended inside that dryer. And then you can run it on high heat for the longest cycle after you've done your clothing for the longest cycle. But nothing comes back in that structure without seeing that heat. So I even, you know, I'll be like, hey, do you have any Ziploc baggies or a plastic bag? You know, something that's brand new, never been used. Put your money, your IDs, whatever you would use in your wallet normally, put it inside those little baggies, take that with you. And then when you return, you know, those go in the garbage, and then the stuff can return to your purse and your backpacks and all that. But I don't want, if I see you taking luggage, you know, and Shofu, I'll tell you. I mean, we've been to convalescent homes or senior living, or even just folks that are just like they're just disabled and so they're in some sort of support facility. They try and leave with a wheelchair. That gives me anxiety, because that's something, and that usually, especially
Exactly.
if you,
Exactly.
if you're disabled, you're probably spending quite a lot of time inside that
More
wheelchair.
time in
And so I'll
yes,
get looks,
yes,
Shofu.
yeah.
I'll ask the facility manager, whoever it is, like, hey, is that a new wheelchair that you just put them in? Where's the wheelchair they're usually in? And they'll say, oh, that's the one that's getting into that car and is getting ready to drive away. That's their wheelchair. And I'm like, ooh, hold on,
Wow.
let's bring them back, please. If we could just get them back
Don't
here.
complicate this for me.
And Shofu, when I tell you,
Wow.
they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, what do you mean they're gonna have to leave their wheelchair? They don't have to leave it. Obviously if there's no bed bugs on it, but I need to at least look at it. Our technicians need to get
Yeah.
eyes on it to be able to see, like, yeah, there's nothing
Exactly.
on this, because the
Yeah.
amount of times that we've seen reinfestation at this point as a business, we've learned that when those items are taken, the process restarts. And even though it's not your fault, it is your fault because you let that leave the facility, right? And so your customer is going to hold you accountable. And that,
Exactly.
if you're running a business, your customer's not happy, which is not good business. But now you have to go out a second, maybe a third time, to follow up until you figure out, hey, this is the common denominator,
Exactly.
And so I'll tell you, I don't know, 9 times out of 10 is probably too high, but I would say 50% of the time when we inspect a wheelchair that's about to leave, there's bed bugs on it. And that type of stuff,
Definitely. There would always be because There will always be because I mean that's where the person usually would spend so much of our time there. So there will always be signs of bed bugs there. If not the adult stage, maybe the nymphs or even the eggs will be around. So that needs to actually be properly inspected first. And one thing I've got from this is the aspect of proper communication with the client. And now, speaking about communication, how do you think we can properly communicate with the clients? Do you think pictorial demonstrations will be good, or do you think phone calls or proper documentation? There's one of my mentor that told me one time, man, you need to write all these things down. Like write them down, let the client sign to it. Just for any reasons or anything can happen at any time just to know that you've said this that they need to stay out of the house for 24 hours. So do you think a proper write-up should be the case or a video clip, just for proper documentation and checklists? Should it be a checklist? Should there be a note prep method? Something like that.
Douglas Products, they make Vicane. They help us on our fumigation side for a lot of the structural stuff that we do for bed bugs even. But they have fumigationfacts.com. They've got fumigation planning guides that kind of go through the prep that needs to take place, what the process is like. And I think that as our technically my title is marketing vice president, right? But like I guess I wear more hats than that. But from a marketing side and from being able to communicate to our customer base, I think I try and model a lot of our communication to kind of mirror what Douglas Products has done, because I think that they do a really good job at effectively communicating the process and what is required. So I think depending on your audience, so if you've got a bunch of college students maybe in a dorm room, maybe they might take a video a little bit better than having to sit there and read something. Whereas if you've got somebody who's a little more elderly, I should say, especially as long as they've still got their sight, maybe they've got some reading glasses. I think they would prefer to consume things, via paper, So I would say having as many platforms available to your customer base as possible, with infographics, with videos, with short clips, that you can just send people real quick. I think that there isn't a correct answer to what you should utilize. I think you should just try to spread yourself out as wide as possible to try and make sure that the point you're trying to get across is best received, because you could give people like plain black and white instructions and they still might do the exact opposite, or just not read it at all. So I think when
Exactly.
when treatment day comes around and you're able to say, hey, Mr. Customer, I sent you this video. I sent you, you signed our preparation sheet, right? You didn't do any of it. I think you have more of a leg to stand on when it comes to, a regulatory body. Maybe you're getting inspected because they're saying that you're being negligent, right? So documentation, I would
Yes.
say for sure is important. But if you're dealing with tenants and landlords, I'll be honest, there's a lot of tenants that even if we give them all of the resources in the world to prep, they think that the landlord is responsible for everything and that they are to be treated as prince and
Exactly.
princesses. And they're like, well, I mean, you guys deal with it. That's not my problem, and it is their problem. It's they're spreading it to other units. They're
Exactly.
preventing this pest from being remediated. So, I mean, I would say again, utilize as many different methods of communication as you can, but there's still going to be a percentage of the population that you know, excuse me for saying this, but basically gives you the finger when you show up. It's brutal out there.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I think that's the best solution. Just try as much as possible to create different channels of communication with your client, so it makes the whole process more easier for you as a professional pest control operator out there. Another aspect is the aspect of where are the areas to really focus on when dealing with this bed bugs. Most especially, you just talk about the multi-unit housing, and that's one of the most common housing in Nigeria or in African countries. So we have multi-units where you have like a three-bedroom and a duplex or something like that. So how then do we now communicate with those people? How then do we now solve bedbug infestation problem? Because I've gotten a case where that the tenant or the neighbor, let me say, got infested through the lining. There's always a clothing line, the similar clothing line where everybody dry up their clothes outside. I don't know if that happens in California, but in Nigeria here, that's like a norms. So we have to like dry our clothes outside. Everybody's using the same clothing line outside. So there is possibility of bed bugs moving from that person's clothes to the other tenants in a multi-unit housing. How then? I know sometimes most of these people are very shy to tell their neighbor that they are infested with bed bugs. So how then do we now solve this bedbug infestation level? Meaning in the fact that I have called True Heat Solutions to solve the bedbug infestation in my house, in my own room, in my own apartment, whereas my neighbor is also infested. But imagine I just, drop up my clothes and go and dry it outside and the neighbor has bed bugs on her clothes, definitely I'm going to be bringing up another bed bug into the house that I've treated again. So how do we now communicate with the neighbor and with the clients to ensure that their 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 neighbors are in the plan of the treatment?
Yeah, and I think that's the issue, right? Is it falls to the pest control technician or the pest control company to educate. And while we would love to do that, not everybody wants to hear from a pest control technician or a pest control operator because our job is so taboo. We
Mm.
treat so many different insects, so many different pests, and vectors of disease, right? That just being
Yes.
associated with pest control could be seen as, some sort of, like slight, I guess. And so it's, it should be us that are as leading the conversation. But I think it starts with the landlord, the property manager. In California, they
Mm.
just recently passed legislation where now any multi housing or any tenant landlord scenario has to include the basic ecology and biology of bedbugs and provide some sort of plan that,
Really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So before, when you sign a lease now, I think that was effective in 2018. So if you sign a lease, there has
Wow.
to be a bedbug disclosure in there that says it doesn't, absolve the landlord of any responsibility or place blame on the tenant. And California is a very pro tenant state. So, I mean, it doesn't say it, but, and I won't even say that it implies it, but, if it goes to court, you know who's going to get in trouble. So I think that when
Wow.
you have the tenant being educated by the landlord, it becomes a more common issue, and people realize just how common these insects are. And you know, we get people who ask us all the time, like, does this mean that I have to sell the house, or is my life over? And it's really
Mm.
just bad luck. You just, again, just like you said, you put
Wow.
your towel on the same clothing line as someone else and took it home, and
Exactly.
wrong place, wrong time. That's it. And so I think that, like, education on bed bugs is, it's not a glamorous thing, and so nobody wants to talk about it.
Hmm. People don't really want to sit down and learn about this, about things that has to do with bedbug control, but it's a necessity. It's something that you need to understand the biology, the ecology, and the treatment method that you need to apply to be able to solve it. Even though you're not infested at the moment, but you also need to understand these things. And I love the law that California passed. I hope the regulatory bodies in Nigeria can apply this, because they see this. It should be a norms. It should be a norms that every household should regularly treat their apartments. I think that law is in the Africa, is in Nigeria, at least about 6 months, about 3 to 6. I mean, 3 to 6 months. Yes, for commercial outlets, commercial bid. I'm very sure about that. That's there's a 3 months, a quarterly treatment that needs to be done every year in Nigeria here. But I think residential houses needs to also, they need to emphasize this. They need to emphasize this treatment method in residential apartments, and that's a very very fantastic, amazing thing there. So now, one major part that we've not talked about is the details of the treatment methods in terms of the technological advancement that is coming up right now. Like you talked about apprehension, that's the chemical aspect, but there's some equipment, latest equipment that you literally don't even. There's even one. There are some I got from is it Nixos? I really even forgot the name, sir. I think it's nice source or so. So they just sent it to me, the UK, from the UK, but it's actually in my office in Lagos. Here I'm in Ibadan at the moment. So, but I've not seen them. It's a bedbug monitoring tape. It involves a bedbug monitoring tape. So there are a lot of equipment that are coming up right now. Um, so if there are some that you know, which I know that you're really aware of some of this equipment, please share us with them. I mean, share them with us.
Yeah, I know Enview just came out with True Detects. I'm not aware of the tape yet for bed bugs, but I mean, I think double-sided tape works pretty well, for like the legs of beds and stuff, so that they can't reinfest. But I mean,
Exactly.
it just depends, because like as the technician, as the pest control company going out there, you have all of these tools at your disposal, and that's at our company, again, we have a lot of different methods for our customers to choose from, but it's up to our customers, the pest control companies, to prescribe the best treatment method for that customer, whether it's an economical decision, whether it's a structural decision, whether it's an ongoing, hey, this is a halfway house, we've got new people being introduced all the time, we've got, multiple tenants, all of those things need to kind of be brought into the full scope of what you're trying to accomplish, and so I think bed bug monitors I've seen, oh gosh, they I think it's Transform is the name that they just changed to, but they have the Sensi volcanoes. Oh gosh, Sonia actually just sent me some information
Oh,
on
okay.
the Natero monitors, but something that you can place, in or
Exact is Notera. I'm trying to remember.
yeah.
It's Notera because it's Sanya that just sent it to me from the UK. So she sent it to me. She's an independent sales rep for them. So she just sent them to me. It's Notera. I was trying to remember. So because I've not seen them physically, so I know that they delivered it to my place, my office here in Lagos, but I've not seen it. So it's Notera. I'm trying to remember. She sent some samples to me too.
And most of those traps have some sort of like aggregate pheromone, and so I think that monitoring is super
Yeah.
important as well. But for us, it's something that I'm trying to implement more and more with our business, but it's tough because it's not technically our customer, and we're not going back to that property unless somebody, our customer, requests it. Usually, the pest control company will do the follow up, but I would highly recommend monitoring. And your question before really came back to, um, if your customer reintroduces the insects, how do you know that it was them and it wasn't your treatment? And the truth of that matter is, there's no way to know, right?
Exactly.
There's no way to know. There's no way to prove that,
Hmm.
hey, unless you have the smoking gun, right? And that customer, and I've been there when we've lifted up people's collars and there's bed bugs on their shirt, living right here, and yeah, I've seen, you can't imagine the things that I've
Wow.
seen, yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot, but our technicians really are the ones that got boots on the ground, and they'll see something gnarly and be like, dude, I have to call Chaz. Chaz is gonna he's gonna geek out on this, you know. But there's no way to tell whether or not it was your treatment. And so all you can do is put together the best protocol that you can, make sure that you're communicating effectively like you described, and then you have to
Exactly.
do follow-ups. You have to come back either with a canine. I mean, that's one that's really, I don't know if you guys utilize canines out there in Nigeria, but in California, canine inspections are super,
Nah.
super common. Okay. And it's really, I mean, the canines really help speed
Nah.
up inspection time. So if you've got a hotel, for example, that wants, you know, just like you
Exactly.
said, you know, an annual inspection, you know, to give them some more information about their property, those canines, I mean, they make quick work of it. So, but if you're not coming back and confirming,
Wow.
like, yes, we did a good job, or yes, this problem is done, then in, you know, depending on whatever warranty you give your customer, you're going to come back, you know, in 35 days. Or if you don't come back, they're going to call you in 35 days and go, hey, Shofu, you know, we're still seeing bed bugs, you know, like, you need to come back. And at that point, you're like, oh no, I did my job. What do you mean? That 35 days? That's forever, man. But if you don't go back and confirm, you don't have any monitors, right? You don't have any way to document that.
Hmm.
Hey, this job is done. That's it. I mean, we got the kill here. You know, this is on you guys now. And you know, I mean, that's a part of that beginning conversation of how do you think that you got these bed bugs, and you know, the conversation with the clothesline, like they're gonna have no idea, you know, until they go and inspect that other
Hmm.
unit and they find out like, oh, dude, this is
Exactly.
ground zero right here. You know, there's 1,000. The walls look like they're
Hmm.
crying. You know, and you find those units all the time. The ones that are actually infesting the building. Trace it back to patient zero.
Exactly.
And but if you don't have monitors, if you don't have, you know, any way to confirm it, you know, it's gonna be a cyclical treatment,
Hmm.
and you know that's job security, you know, but it's not doing your customer any justice, and I don't think that you get referral business from treatments like that, you know. So I think once you establish
Exactly.
yourself
Exactly.
as having the ability to take care of these really specialized insects, you just become the man.
Hmm.
And anytime, you know, or woman, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, really really good females in our industry that they'll get that call like, hey, you know what, hey, Shofu, I heard that you're really good at this, you know, I would love for you to come take a look at my property now, my friend recommended, you know. And so yeah, I mean, the True Detects is something that we played with a little bit, but because our company is a subcontractor, we don't have any direct marketing capability to verify, you know, whether or not, you know, that product is going to be good. But we did test it, and I like the concept of True Detects. But yeah.
It works like a pregnancy kit, and that's really really amazing. I saw it on someone's post on LinkedIn. Squisky, sorry if I didn't pronounce his name very well. I think Mr. Andrew or so.
Okay.
He posted the results today, so that gives me much more assurance on True Detects. That's a product from Envu. If you're doubting, for those who are listening that don't know about it, it's a bed bug monitoring test kit from Envu. I really hope there's a sales rep for a manager for Envu Nigeria here. We have one in Nigeria. We have an office of Envu Nigeria. I really hope they get to bring it to Nigeria because it's going to be a fantastic work. And I think, just like you said, that there is no how you can guarantee an effective control if you don't go back to check.
There we go. Dude, gets me hype every time I watch that.
have a question from Mr. Rafiu Tijani. Is asking, how do we treat bed bugs once and we will not have to go back for the same treatment in a short period of time? First, from my own hand, if I'm going to answer that question, that's not possible if you're going to do a professional bed bug treatment. But I want Mr. Kaz to, tell us about that as an experienced professional pest control operator.
Yeah, I don't think that it's possible to do it off of one visit. And I say that I think you can do it with one treatment. And we've had success with single treatment bedbug applications, but you still have to go back and confirm that the job is done. So I would say, I mean, even if you gave it like 2 weeks, I would say 2 weeks is enough time for the products to do their job, for your customer to know whether or not the efficacy of the treatment was, I mean, to the highest standard, and they're not seeing anything else. And sometimes you can't go off of what the customer says because they're working off of bites on their arms and not IDs of insects, and so if they're not able to give you a video or a photo of continued evidence, there's something to be said about that as well. But yeah, I think that really depends on your ability as a technician. It depends on the amount of time that you have for that application. But you could in effect really, I mean, take somebody's bedroom apart, from one end to the next. And on some of our much more difficult jobs, that's what we have to do, because the clutter levels are so high, because their inability to prep. You have to kind of go through their properties piece by piece. Now, do I think that you should charge that person the same amount as somebody who can prepare or who can, help your treatment process? Yeah, no, I don't think that they should. I think that should be, a specialty treatment, But I would say, utilizing a vacuum like Agro Concept said, utilizing steam, utilizing different insecticides, dusts, there are so many different application methods and products.
So what I got from what you said is that it's not possible to do a one-time treatment, but there are some times that you tend to get perfect result from a single treatment. I also get that feedback. So sometimes some clients want to even play smart to say, I only do the treatment once, then after, if I notice anything again, I'm going to call you back to do another treatment. But it's also, and the way I operate as a professional pest control operator, when it comes to bedbug treatment, is that I give a recommendation of a double treatment. A double treatment needs to go in first, no matter what. But sometimes the clients want to play smart and just say, okay, just do this thing once for me, Jerry. If you do it once and if I say anything else, I'll pay you for a second treatment. But for me, sometimes I don't go with that. But looking at the latest advancements and technologies that are coming into the industry, like the monitoring device and something like what Sanya sent to me, a notorious bedbug tape. That's a very good monitoring device. So we can implement this, as even the Trudex from Envo, as a follow-up treatment to ensure that there is no longer bedbug infestation process. So for Mr. Rafiu Tijani, I think what you need to implement is technological tools like new advancements here, monitoring devices. There is the bedbug encasement mattress, so the clients can use it because some of these encasement mattresses have like pyrethroids in them, depending on who you are getting it from. So these are the latest equipments that can be, or tools that you can apply so that you don't go there again. If that's what you want, it's just a one-time treatment and you don't want to go there again, maybe because of transportation costs or something like that. I understand the Nigerian view, a lot of things are quite on the high side at the moment. So we have to like cut costs and all those kind of things. But if you can put a monitoring device and educate the clients on how they need to check it regularly to ensure that these bedbugs are not there, I think that's a perfect answer. All right. So there's some people who are listening from Facebook, YouTube. Also, we have Steffi B503. I think that's from Twitch, from your platform of Twitch. So she's giving you a shout out, Kaz. All right. So we have Sosa Agro Concepts. Also, we have some people who are listening on the radio at insideradio.net. One amazing thing now we can do is we can take in phone calls. If you want to call us directly on the show tonight, maybe you want to share your experience or you want to ask questions, the phone lines to call in is 090-178-27767. 090-178-27767. 27767. If you want to call in on the show, maybe you have a question to ask. We have just some few more minutes, about 20 more minutes before we wrap up the show tonight. And we're going to have an amazing time. We've been having a couple of discussion around bedbug control, latest advancements in the industry, some tools and some techniques that needs to be applied in ensuring that bedbugs no longer affect or become manifestation with your clients. Those are the things, right? We've talked about the latest products, But speaking about all those products, there is two phases of bedbug control, right? Well, let me say there are multiple phases, but this, you have like non-chemical methods and we have the chemical method. But an aspect is the liquid. Where I want to really focus on is the liquid and the heat treatment. The liquid and the heat treatment. How are this process? I want you to walk me through or walk us through the application method, because one thing about bedbug that I'm very very certain about is you can have the best product, you can have apprehend, you can have the best of the best of the best product, but if you don't know how to apply this product, it becomes a major challenge. So for a newbie or an expert who is in the industry, who sometimes find it very, very difficult to deal with bed bugs. Now, Mr. Kaz, I want you to walk us through a proper liquid application method, each treatment application method, and dust application, like residual dust, like Semexa, like you said.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. And to revisit what you just said as well before this, where the customers are saying like, hey, SB, I don't want two treatments right now. I think as a technician, I mean, you really have to stand your ground when it comes to this insect, because bedbug treatments are just they're so different every time you go out to one of these new properties. So, I think if your customer isn't able to take your direction as the professional, it's just going to be a really difficult process the entire time. So SB, I would say, dude, if you're recommending two treatments, I would stick to it. And if you think that it needs two is what they should have. It's a really big problem in California, but we get a lot of people who try and summarize our knowledge, with Google searches, and it's not the same. I think that you can learn quite a bit from Google, right? There's going to be good and bad information on there, but
Exactly.
you can't replace,
True.
seeing eggs. You can't replace, finding bedbug castings, behind headboards, in cracks and crevices, up underneath baseboards when you've pulled them off. All of that in-field knowledge, I mean, is what separates us as a business and being able to charge for these services from your average person that can go down to a local hardware store and pick up some products that have the pictures of insects on them, So when it comes to your applications, I think, again, a lot of people really simplify what we do, and they think that, like, oh, I run a pest control business. How hard could, bed bugs be as a service? But you're not just going to show up with a 1-gallon sprayer and call it a day, You're not treating for ants. You're not treating for general pests. This is a very, very successful insect that cohabitates with or lives, commensally. I'm not sure if that's a correct word actually, but they live with humans, and they do it so well that you don't even know you have an issue until 6 months in, 3 months in, and so. With liquid applications, I would say, again, I really am focusing, if you could draw like a sphere or a bubble, an 8-foot, and, it doesn't have to be exactly 8 feet, but anything that is touching that sphere, dressers, I forget what the little chests are that sit at the bottom of the beds, but the bed itself, maybe there's a painting on the wall behind the bed. We've had failures where there was, a electrical box that was sitting on the wall next to the bed that our technician just missed. He's like, I would never have thought, but bed bugs don't discriminate. If they've got a hiding spot and it's near their food source, they're going to utilize it. So whether you're doing heat treatments or liquid, you need to verify where these people spend most of their time. And with more and more treatments, you get that experience of like, you know what, I had an older lady who she never slept in her bed. She never sat on her couch. She was either on her walker or she was sitting at the dining room table, and you can see the piles and piles of crosswords where she spent most of her time, you know? And so once you verify those areas, that's when you can start to really get down and start your treatment. So um, I start most of my treatments with the vacuum, regardless of if it's a heat treatment or a liquid. I'm not sure if it got recorded earlier, but the Atrix Ergo PMP BP, Pest Management Professional Backpack Vacuum, that is my go-to. We have one
Yeah.
on every one of our trucks. I've got extras at the shop. I should probably even pick up a couple extra just to have, because that backpack is such a good tool. But and outside of bed bugs, even, I don't want to go on a tangent, but roaches. I mean, the ability to take that insect with you right then, you don't have to worry about heat. You don't have to worry about your insecticide. That bed bug, as for your customer, that problem is solved for every single one that you can vacuum up. And I can't remember if it was Deanie Miller or Gail Getty, but one of them, they took like a pantyhose and they put it inside their vacuum, just like a sock, I guess. And then they went to go vacuum everything up.
Okay.
And then when they're done, you can pull that pantyhose off, and now you've got your collection of bed bugs kind of inside there. And I thought that was a really cool trick. So if you're ever trying to gather specimens, awesome.
I think that's from Dini Miller. I think that's from Dr. Dini Miller.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that's a really cool
I think
trick.
that's from Dr. Dini Miller.
But every one of those insects that you vacuum up is an insect you don't have to worry about, And so after that happens, I
Exactly.
usually when I'm doing a liquid treatment, and for us, we don't really do like liquid treatments as a first recommendation because we're so heavy into heat treatments. But if we have a failure, the liquid is usually what we go on. And liquid is also like a bad term for it because it's really more steam and vacuum. And now, again, we're kind of leaning on apprehend. So, we're even utilizing a lot more of that along with our crossfire. But I start with the bed. I'm going to take the only thing that I really want laundered in that room and that I would bag is I'll take a nice big hefty bag, usually 55-gallon trash bag. I'll take the pillows, the pillowcases, the bedspread, the sheets. I'll put them all in that bag, tie them up. We have stickers that say, hey, please launder this on high heat, longest setting. If the customer will give me permission, I'll go put it in their dryer myself right then. And that way I know the problem's done. And then I'll get to work on the mattress.
Exactly.
I'm focused on seams. I'm focused on the tufts. I'm focused on the areas where the handles are. The stickers that say like "Do not remove." Like those stickers, notorious for bedbug activity.
Exactly.
And there isn't like a favorite spot for bedbugs on a mattress or a box spring, but most commonly I'll either see them at the foot of the bed near the wall, or the headboard near the wall, and just a kind of a reclusive area for them to kind of hide and, be away from, your tenant or homeowner's like vision. So I just take that vacuum, as crazy as it sounds, and I just go to work. If I see 30, 40 bed bugs, I'm vacuuming those bed bugs up. If you'd like to hit them with steam or some chemical before that, by all means. I don't like to do it because it scatters them. And more often than not, when you're steaming a large cluster of bed bugs, they'll start to fall, and then you have to keep track of where they landed, and then now you're freaking out because they're on the ground, So I'd rather just vacuum them up, honestly. So I think you could probably take care of like 90% of the bedbug issue at that property with the vacuum just on one pass. Once that vacuuming is done, and again, as I'm going through, I'm taking the mattress off, moving that to another side of the room. I vacuum that whole thing. Once that's done, I move on to the box spring, and you kind of do a complete treatment to each item that you're removing. If I'm taking pillows off the bed, nothing moves at all until it's either been vacuumed or steam treated. And so the pillows, sometimes there's stuffed animals on the bed. I steam all of that, and the steam is non-discriminate. It's going to take care of every version of the life cycle for bed bugs: nymph, egg, adult. It's just going to smoke them. Once that's done, if I haven't vacuumed that particular piece, I'll vacuum it and then move it off. And then I'll get like a section of the property or the room wherever I'm at that is now considered clean to me. And then I'll start to work my way through the rest of the contents of that room.
I think, like you said, the vacuum is one of the most important things. And to be precise, the EPA vacuum, forgotten the full name of the HEPA vacuum, but that ergo you're talking about, the Altis ergo is an HEPA vacuum. So it's really, so it doesn't, the filtration is that the difference is that it doesn't vacuum and it goes out into the air. But if you're using an HEPA vacuum, I forget the full, what's the HEPA what it stands for. So it really it's a fantastic high efficiency particulate air. If you're going to be using that, so it doesn't release the air out, so it stores it back. So whatever you're going to be vacuuming doesn't have any way to escape, but they are still inside. All right. So the latest technological advancements that you can apply as a professional pest control operator where you're dealing with any pest is, number one, try and use steamer vacuums. Ensure that you use less pesticides to avoid resistance. And if you're going to be using insecticide, ensure that you're using different type of pesticides, different classes of active ingredients, to be precise, different classes of active ingredients. And there are some products that you can use that are still under the same category, maybe like an organophosphate. It's still going to be organophosphate, but it's just different name. But as a professional pest control operator, ensure that you're changing this product and changing the active ingredients. Ensure that you're using a nicotinoids first, and you go back into the pyrazoles or the phenylpyrazoles or the imidacloprid, or just a different type of active ingredients. If you want to use an insecticide, like he said, like Mr. Kaz said, that you have to first look at the economical challenges and the environment that you want to deal with. So that's a fantastic one. Fantastic stuff out there. So we have just 7 more minutes to to wrap up the show tonight. And we've talked about the application. We've talked about so many things: the treatment methods, the list of treatment methods, and the preparatory process, and importance of documentation, importance of proper communication with the client. So I will just ask this last questions, and it is, what exactly would you recommend for professional pest control operator to be able to perform effectively on site? Continuous training, attending webinars, attending conferences. Because if the professional is not professional, let me place it that way. If the professional is not professional, then there is no how the professional wants to teach the client. So you end up being taught by the client on site. So I think that's the mistake, and that's the error that most professional pest control operators out there really end up. It's just like a case of the patient is prescribing drugs that they would use to the doctor, right? So it's not the other way around. So what would you recommend, just like a parting words for pest control operators out there?
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, excuse me, in the United States, we're kind of spoiled, right? Like we've got a lot of our education from our manufacturers and distributors. They're excellent partners to us. So I would say if you have access to them, lean on your distributor, lean on your partners first. I'm, shamelessly going to say that if you're purchasing your products online and are not working with a distributor, you're doing your company a disservice. And the argument that I get all the time is like, well, Chaz, I can get this information online. Why do I need to have a distributor? And I'll tell you, if your distributor is not worth his weight in salt, right? Then I'll say, I agree with you. They should be supporting you. They should be value added, right? But your distributor is almost always going to have the knowledge that you're looking for, because all they see are the issues with their customer list. If SB were to call me as his distributor, I would assume that problem would probably be like up here somewhere, because if SB can't figure it out, it's probably a real problem, right?
Exactly.
And so being able to share and learn, and I would say even like Ryan Goins and his wife Noelle started up.
I should break the goings on
oh, they would be a great guest.
Show.
Yeah,
I've been following the two of them. They just brought out, I think, a foundation or so. I think they just brought out the foundation.
Keep it going. Yeah.
Out there now. Yeah, keep it going. Yeah. That's a fantastic one.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic one. A quick shout out to them.
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, Ryan and Noelle rock. And there again, there's so many really great operators out there. But they opened my eyes to the amount of networking groups that are out there from just again industry leaders, front runners, people that are go getters that are gonna be able to add value to your colleagues. And so if you can, dude, pick up the phone and if somebody's doing a service that you're interested in, I would say reach out and call them, and just say, hey, I'm a local operator. I've seen your stuff online, or a lot of these guys are starting to push out onto social media, and so they're already putting their self out there as like, hey, we're advertising this, So I would say pick their brain, get in contact with your local like BNI, Toastmasters, state associations, gosh, your country, might have associations. We've got NPMA on the national scale, but each one of the individual states that we have here in the U.S., most of them have their own state association as well. So just try and get involved. I mean, there's only so much that you can learn from books. I think you learn a lot more by failing together, and learning from other people's mistakes, and learning from their wins, So, just like USB, dude, I might reach out now and ask you some things on some treatments, because I'm sure there's stuff that you've seen. I mean, I'm not even sure what pest control looks like in Nigeria, like I would love to be, your shadow for a day and, kind of see what I could learn from you guys out there. But I mean, I would say lean on your colleagues, lean on your industry. The majority of the people that are in our industry are very special people. And by that, I mean, they're willing to get dirty. They're willing to deal with insects. They're willing to deal with people's filth. It takes a very special type of person to fit that demographic. And so if you feel like you're stagnating or you're not learning fast enough, I can tell you your peers are the ones that you should lean on. Your distributors, the people that make the products, the manufacturers, all of them are from the industry for the most part, and will be able to give you a wealth of knowledge. And again, you might teach them something, and that's really important. But yeah, I would say if you're looking to learn some more, there are seminars, there are events that happen, and I would say do your own research on those. But the easiest way to grow is to just make some friends and reach out and network.
Amazing. I think that's a perfect way to to end up the show. And before we go, the talking about webinars, we pull out webinars on insightradio.net, so you can subscribe to our email list, email broadcast. And an amazing thing is that we'll be creating what they call the Pest Experience Fans Club starting from tonight. So if you want to join the Fans Club, we have entomologists, we have professional pest control operators across the world, across different states, across different cities, across different country. And that platform is going to be based on approval. If only you are really approved to be, be part of the society, because the community, because it's going to be so much of information and the wealth of knowledge that will be passed across. So you need a professional platform where you can get quality information and what exactly is going on in the industry. All right. Thank you very much for joining in and staying tuned for 1 hour 30 minutes. We crossed it. That's amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Chaz. Thank you for joining the Pest Experience show. And all the way from California, it's a really my own greatest pleasure to really have you on my show tonight. Thank you very much for everyone who took out their time to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And for every single person that asked questions, Mr. Rafiu Tijani, Sosa Agro Concept Limited, a big shout out to you from Nigeria. Sanya, I noticed Sanya has been reposting and retweeting everything on LinkedIn. Amazing friend of mine. Thank you very much. Sanya Brando from Hawaii. Thank you very much. Thank you very super much. It's my greatest pleasure to really have you guys. Stay tuned on Inside Radio on the Pest Experience show, and you know what the time is. It next time we'll see you same time. Okay, so we have a comment. Say I totally agree with you. I always start with the steam and dime live bed bugs fall off. Then I would have to steam them up and vacuum. Okay. When I stay with vacuum, okay, let me show that comment. That's a comment from someone. Susan, I agree. Okay, I think it's supporting what you said. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sosa, for joining the show. So we'll see you same time, 7 to 8 p.m. West African time on insideradio.net. And you can also watch the recordings of this video on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Instagram. This recordings will also be played on Spotify immediately after the show. So I'll see you next time, same station, directly on insightradio.net. My name is Shofu Babalolatio.